Hi, this is 365801 and this is a book haul and stats video for the first quarter of 2023. So first of all, I do want to say that if you have already watched the 3 monthly hauls that I've done for 2023 so far, which is the first quarter, then you probably don't need to watch this video. What I'm going to be talking about is mainly just looking at the statistics of the books that I have purchased and going through some of that. So it's going to be a stat video really, more than a discussion video or talking about the titles in depth. So just so you know, it's a little bit different, but also it's the same stuff. So if you've already watched those ones, you probably don't need to watch this video. Now, the reason I'm doing this first quarter analysis is for two reasons. And the first is that last year was, there was definitely an error on my part. And that was because I had decided that I wasn't going to do haul videos every month and I was going to do them every quarter instead, which meant the videos were super long. And also I didn't take into account that I was purchasing more prose than I had ever done before. So I usually did a monthly haul video and I would say these are all the manga books that I purchased, and then there would be the odd prose book just thrown in there, and it might have been a gift from someone, or it might have been that it was a male romance, or it was a translation of a Japanese title, or it was a yaoi novel. So there might be some prose mixed in, but it wasn't that many. Unfortunately, last year I didn't really take into account the fact that I might be going to charity shops and seeing books that booktubers had talked about that I would be interested in, and they would be 50p or £1 or £2, something like that, and I would be interested enough to purchase them, and therefore it was a purchase that I made during the quarter, and therefore it would be included in my quarter haul, which meant that I had stacks of prose books as well as stacks of manga to talk about at the end of each quarter, which meant my videos were super long, and it wasn't very helpful when analysing my spending at the end of the year. So that was my fault. So that's really one of the reasons why I'm making this video, is to help me come the end of the year to analyse my spending. And that leads on to the next point, and that is my spending analysis is almost always about the BL manga that I've purchased. Now, I'll link the video for 2022's I spent how much on BL, which is where I go into detail month by month, or in that case quarter by quarter, like how many books I purchased that were BL, how much I spent on lesson coins, etc. And it was a really great year. It was fantastic. It was a record-breaking year in terms of the amount, because it was so much lower than the previous years. But it didn't take into account how much I spent on other things like male romance prose books, or yaoi novels, or danme, or Audible, or KU, or things like that. So anything other than BL manga or BL in general, I didn't really talk about in the same way, and I didn't analyze in the same way, and I didn't total up. And I feel like that's something I need to do. I'm going to take accountability. So this is the first video of taking accountability for what I'm purchasing. When I think about how much I spent last year on prose, if I total it up, it's probably the amount that is the deficit between 2022's spend on BL and 2021's spend on BL, which isn't necessarily great, because if I think about it, what would I rather spend that money on? And I'm a BL manga collector first and foremost, and that's kind of what this is about. So it's about looking at my spending habits. How much am I spending? Where's that money going? Does it equate to not spending on BL? Or am I happy with the purchases? Like, a lot of questions there, but also accountability on my part. Anyway, I've rambled on. I won't be doing this ramble for the next quarter video, so that's something to look forward to. But now you know my reasoning behind this. Anyway, let's get into some statistics. So let's just go through each month by month. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it, and then talk about all of them as a whole. So this is January's haul. I picked up all of these from charity shops. The first one at the top is Richard Osman's The Man Who Died Twice as a paperback version, and I paid 50p for that, and all of the rest were £1, all from charity shops. So the total for January for spend was £5.50. Now, that's not too bad, which meant that the average cost of each one was only 91p, which is pretty good. These were all adult fiction, so no young adult, just adult. And only one was fantasy, I put down as Jade City, and the rest are mystery. In terms of actually reading some, I have read some of these for a mystery TBR. And also, I just want to mention, I don't think any of these are explicitly queer in any way, but I'd love to hear from you if you've read them and you're saying, well, they're mostly this, but there's a little bit of queer aspects in there, because I am obviously more interested in reading queer literature than anything else. So yeah, that's something I'm also tracking as well. So on to February. February I picked up 10 volumes, and I was able to get 4 of them from charity shops. The top 4, the Becky Chambers, Becky Albertalli and David Leviathan titles, they were all £1 each. Then I've got The Magpie Lord by KJ Charles. That was £2.46. The Cuckoo's Call by Lily Morton, £4.21. Then I've got the 2 J.L. Langley titles, Without Reservations, £4.52, and With Caution, £4.03. And then I've got the 2 Danmai titles, The Scum Villain Self-Saving System, which I got Volume 1 for £7.75 and Volume 4 for £7.61, which gives a total of £34.58. But with the 10 of them, it's an average of £3.46 a title, which is certainly not bad at all, mainly because there's those 4 there with from the charity shop. When I'm looking at adult versus young adult, I'm not really 100% sure where to put the Danmai titles, so I'm just going to leave them separate. So there's 2 Danmai. There's 2 young adult titles and 6 adult titles. When it comes to the genres, there are 3 contemporary, and then I think the rest, I would say, are either sci-fi or fantasy. Obviously, the top 2 I think are sci-fi, but there's an element of fantasy there as well. So I would say, yeah, 3 for contemporary and then 7 for sci-fi fantasy. When it comes to whether or not I've read some of these titles, not in this form, but yes, I have. So some of them I've read digitally or with an Audible version, but not all of them in the physical form as they are just now. So that's something to look into. Sometimes you will buy a book because you've already read it and you just want a copy, and sometimes you'll buy the book because you want to read the book. It's a different way of thinking about your collection. So some of these I own because I've already read them, versus yeah, buying them because I want to read them. And in fact, yeah, With Caution, Without Reservations, The Scum Villain Self-Saving System, The Magpie Lord, these are all ones I've already read, so I do need to read 5 of them. But that's still a pretty good percentage for this month. So on to March, and for March I picked up 6 titles. Many of these were from charity shops, so we'll start with the charity shop purchases. At the top there, The Twyford Code by Janice Hallett, that was only 50p. Then I've got A Fatal Crossing by Tom Hindle, Legendborn, A Dark Shade of Magic. All 3 of them were charity shop purchases for £1. Underneath that, I picked up Simon Fexmal as £3.55 and Carry On for £3.45. So the 2 at the bottom that I specifically went on my way to purchase together came to £7. And the rest of them is £3.50. So it's £10 and 50p for the total for March, which means that the average cost of a title was £1.75, which is still pretty good, I have to say. Now, 4 of these are adult titles and 2 of them are young adult titles. We also have some fantasy and some mystery. Simon Fixable, the KJ Charles ones, even with the Magpie Lord a bit, and you could say even with the Without Reservations series, there's an element of mystery, but it's not one. And I had to go onto Goodreads and actually check, like, what is the main identifiers of them? Are they paranormal? Are they fantasy? You know, all that kind of thing. So actually finding out what the main genre of something is kind of tricky, because there's sub-genres within that which are really integral to the whole point of the book. So I seem to enjoy a lot of fantasy that have a mystery element, or mysteries that are set within fantastical worlds. That seems to be a thing for me. If I like a mystery, and it's a fantasy setting, that's fine. If it's a fantasy but the overall arching plot has an element of mystery to it, that's also something I'm going to look for. So that was interesting in terms of looking at the genres. Now, once again, I have read Carry On, but not this particular volume. This was a purchase because I need to have it on my shelf to go with the rest of my set. And I have already an Audible version for Simon Fixable, but I really wanted to read it and listen to it at the same time, which is why I was looking for, well, I'm always out for any KJ Charles. So the other ones were just pickups because I'd seen or heard of them through Booktube, which I think I'm going to have to just avoid now, because I keep going into bookshops and going, oh, I've seen this, and then now they're just sitting on my shelves, not being read, which is not good. So on to another little stack here, and these are all of the Mail romance that I specifically purchased myself, not ones that I picked up in a charity shop. So there's 8 titles that I've purchased versus the 14 that I have just found in a charity shop. And so these are specifically queer and specifically male romance oriented. So these are the ones that I really want to class as being much more important or more integral to my collection, because these are ones I'm probably going to keep no matter what, versus the charity shop purchases, which I might read once and then take back to the charity shop, or just pass on to a friend or something like that. So these are the ones that I'm actually feel like I'm adding to the collection, to my own collection, rather than the charity shop ones, which I never really feel like. I feel like they're a bit more transient. I could take it or leave them. So if I suddenly had to leave my house, you know, and I'd have to pack up the things I want to take with me, these are the books I'm taking. The other ones, I can just give them back to the charity shop. So, yeah, I want to point these out. They're slightly different because I actively purchased these. I searched for them and found them, and that's different. Also, in terms of reading them, there's only The Cuckoo's Call by Lily Morton and Simon Fixable that I need to read from this pile. The other ones I have read in different forms before, so I don't feel like it's buying books necessarily to read, except for these bottom 2, although they are just part of collection. So this is kind of like collection pros rather than just purchase pros. The other thing is that because these are more conscious purchases, I wanted to total this up, and so that is £37.58 for these 8 volumes. So that gives me an average for these 8 volumes. The average is £4.70. So £4.70 is much more realistic for my own idea of the purchases I'm making. So yeah, £37.58, which leaves £13 from the total. Yeah, it's kind of a bit like, okay, so that's where the money is going. It's because these are conscious purchases. These are ones that I actually want. And £4.70 seems about accurate when it comes to the cost of each of these titles. Obviously, I am going to sell that Scumvillain Self-Saving System Volume 1, because it's just a duplicate and I was silly enough to purchase it. I do not know why. So that will reduce the total down to 7, and it will reduce the average as well, which will take it down to about, I don't know, £4.40 or £4.45, something like that. So not too much of a difference, but it is a different type of purchase for pros, and I do think that's important. So here are all of the purchases that were pros in the first quarter of 2023. There are 22 volumes, and the total for the full 3 months is £50.58. And when you average that out, it comes to £2.30 a volume, which is very different from the £4.70 that I was just talking about. So it makes a huge difference by going to a charity shop and purchasing something for 50p or a pound. But many of these I think will go on my bookshelf, and I will maybe get round to reading them at some point. But I feel like I'm a little bit too focused on mood reading this year rather than actually being conscientious about reading what I own. We'll see. I have tried, but it's difficult. Anyway, so I haven't read loads of these. I don't know what many of them are about. I have read some, but this is just a little bit of stats for you. If there was any stats that I missed out, I mean, overall, I bought 7 mystery, 12 sci-fi fantasy, and 3 contemporary. I had 15 adults, 5 young adults, and 2 danme. So there's some stats there that I think are useful, and I might try and make this a little bit more concise in the next quarterly haul of my pros. I have already purchased more pros in April. We are in April, and so there will be another video like this in another 3 months' time. Hopefully you found this interesting. I would love to know how many books you've purchased, and do you go to charity shops and thrift shops, and do you count them, or do you only pick up books that you know you want in your collection? Or are you like me and you're just like, oh, I've seen a booktuber talk about this, I'm gonna pick it up and see if I can read it, and then I'm not reading them. So yeah, I'd love to know if you are doing the same as me, if you're buying things because they're cheap and they're in front of you, or if you're going out and doing what I'm also doing, which is being selective and saying, okay, I want this book in my collection because I've already read it and I want the physical copy, and I can get it for eBay from a good price or something like that. So yeah, I would love to know your pros purchases, and are you keeping track of how much you're spending? I have been, like I said, trying to read what I already own, and I'm doing quite well with the manga, but I'm not doing terribly well with the pros. So I need some recommendations. If there's anything in front of you right now that you can see and you're like, wow, I can't believe she hasn't read that already, give me a reason why I should read it. I need to be, I really need people to push me to say, you need to read this book. You already own it. It's right there. So yeah, if there's any that you're like, that was a great one, she should read that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully this was interesting. It's a stats video, so it's good for some people. It's not good for others. But yeah, take care guys. I will see you in the next video. Bye.